Mark and Anissa. Mark and Anissa is the most toxic and heavily debated encounter in the series. Nothing says soulmates like a hostile Viltrumite treating Mark like a weak half-breed play toy. Shortly after Mark returns from 6 months in an alternate dimension ruled by Mohawk Mark, Eve breaks up with him. How does Anissa comfort our vulnerable hero? By sexually assaulting him. Couple of the year, truly. Mark is left shattered, suffering from severe PTSD. The emotional damage makes for a fun time later when Eve touches him after giving birth to Tara. He reacts horribly from his trauma, hiding the real reason. During the 5-year time skip, Anissa gives birth to Marcus Murphy, aka Marky. She marries a human, Scott Murphy, and has a daughter, Molly, while Marky grows up thinking Scott is his biological father. Near the end of her life, Anissa dies fighting Thragg's forces. Right before passing, she saves Eve, tearfully apologizes for her horrible actions against Mark, and reveals the massive bombshell that Mark has a son. Mark eventually meets Marky, tells him the truth, and Scott remains the true dad who raised him. This dynamic is an absolute abomination. Nolan's parents. Nolan's parents have a relationship mostly told through flashbacks. Originally revealed as the hidden son of Argal, Viltrum's legendary assassinated ruler, Nolan was raised by foster parents to conceal his royal bloodline. In Viltrumite culture, a child's coming-of-age ritual involves surviving a brutal, all-out battle against their own parents. During Nolan's initiation, his mother ruthlessly beat him half to death, but his father ultimately intervened to spare him, cryptically telling him to make Argal proud. Shortly after this horrifying trial, Phaetus unleashed the deadly Scourge virus. Nolan was helplessly forced to watch his parents succumb to the bioweapon, leaving him completely alone. He grew up an orphan, unaware of his true royal heritage. The parental instinct only resurfaces when Thragg realizes Nolan is Argal's true heir. Thragg viciously attacks Nolan to keep the throne, but Craig, Anissa, Lucan, and Thula severely beat Thragg once they learn Nolan's true identity. The remaining Viltrumites ultimately betray Thragg to crown Nolan, passing the bloodline's legacy and the future of the entire Viltrumite race on to Mark. Thragg and Thraxan females. Thragg and the Thraxan females share a forced relationship that isn't shown as a romance at all. After Nolan becomes emperor and Thragg is exiled, Thragg goes to Thraxa to selfishly rebuild his massive army. Since Thraxans age and reproduce rapidly, Thragg dangerously uses that genetic trait to selectively breed a huge generation of disposable Viltrumite Thraxan hybrids. His known children, Ursel and Onan, become top soldiers in this new army. Thragg trains them as literal soldiers, sending them across planets to brutally conquer territory while preparing his revenge against Nolan, Mark, and the Viltrumites who rejected him. The children eagerly pledge to conquer territory for their father, blind to his manipulation, as Thragg coldly encourages them to make enemies pay. They truly believe they are restoring the real empire. However, during the final war, Thragg uses them as disposable weapons, even as many violently die. Ursel eventually sees that Thragg cares more about his revenge than his children's lives. She orders the surviving hybrids to stand down, causing Thragg to lose the army he built. Lucan and his human mate. Lucan and his human mate are the exact opposite of a horrible couple. Lucan starts as a Viltrumite sent to capture Nolan on Thraxa. He fights Mark and Nolan, gets disemboweled by Nolan, but survives to break Nolan's back. He later joins the Viltrumites, settling on Earth under Thragg's truce. Their mission? Live among humans, stay hidden, and create children to rebuild the Viltrumite population. Lucan disobeys Thragg's vision. He finds one human woman, falls in genuine love, and only has children with her. When Thragg scolds Lucan, Anissa, and Craig for not multiplying fast enough, Lucan steps up. He passionately explains his mate had already suffered a relationship with a cheater, and he refuses to put her through that betrayal again just to increase offspring. When Thragg dismisses humans as cattle, Lucan defends her honor. The story doesn't spend much time with the woman, but Lucan choosing one family over the Empire's breeding mission makes them an amazing couple. Anissa and Scott Murphy. Anissa and Scott Murphy have a romance that happens after the worst part of her story. After assaulting Mark and having Marky, Anissa meets Scott, marries him, and builds an Earth family. They have a daughter, Molly, and Scott lovingly raises Marky as his own son. While Mark is missing, Anissa's character develops from a violent Viltrumite soldier into someone who deeply cares about her husband and children. When Mark returns after 5 years, Eve attacks Anissa on the warship, instinctively knowing something horrible happened between them. Mark stops the situation, hiding the truth, and Anissa quietly returns to Scott. Before the final battle, she admits Scott's love made her a fundamentally better person. Later, fighting Thragg's forces, Anissa saves Eve but is fatally wounded. She apologizes for assaulting Mark, reveals the truth about Marky to Eve, and dies before returning to Scott. Oliver and Haluma. While Mark is gone for 5 years, Oliver works with the Coalition and acts as a double agent inside Thragg's army. During this period, he marries Haluma, a lobster-like alien woman, and they have twins. In a wholesome dinner scene, Oliver confidently introduces Haluma to Mark and Eve, unfazed by their shock at her appearance. The relationship turns heavily tragic when Thragg orders Oliver not to warn Mark's family about an incoming attack. Oliver disobeys, breaks his cover to save Tara, and fights Thragg. Thragg brutally kills him, leaving Haluma and their children behind. Thula and her human mate. Thula and her human mate are an unexpected pairing, especially since Thula enters the story as one of the most dangerous surviving Viltrumites. She fights in the Viltrumite War with a lethal blade attached to her hair, survives Viltrum's destruction, and retreats with Thragg's soldiers. After the truce, she hides on Earth. Thragg's order is to blend in and create children. While her personal life is initially kept under wraps, it's revealed she genuinely falls for a middle-aged human man, rather than treating him as a mechanical part of the repopulation plan. She is present when Nolan's royal bloodline is revealed, fiercely joining Anissa, Lucan, and Craig to attack Thragg upon learning Nolan is Argal's heir. When Nolan orders them to spare Thragg, Thula obeys. Afterward, she remains a loyal part of the changed Viltrumite population under Nolan and Mark's leadership. Craig and his multiple human mates. Craig and his multiple human mates definitely do not make for a picture-perfect one-partner romance. Craig's Earth romance story involves several unnamed human mates. Arriving on Earth as one of Thragg's most loyal officers, he hides his cybernetic eye, blends in as a human biker, and enthusiastically begins having children with human women worldwide as part of a repopulation mission. During a Flaxen attack in London, Craig heroically saves humans from falling debris, disobeying Thragg's strict orders against interfering with Earth's petty problems. Thragg furiously drags him onto the warship, blaming him for risking exposure. Craig firmly says that a woman in London is carrying his child. When Thragg points out that Craig has nearly a dozen pregnant women across the globe, Craig boldly admits to it, declaring he genuinely loves every single one of them. Later, Craig sides with Nolan upon learning he is Argal's heir and remains with the reformed Viltrumites. Literally too much love in his heart to keep it to one person. Mark and Adam Eve. Mark and Adam Eve form the most iconic relationship in the series, though they initially start as just close friends through the team. Eve is with Rexplode, and Mark dates Amber, making their timing terrible for a long stretch. After those relationships break down, Mark and Eve finally get together. It wasn't a smooth ride. Mark leaves Earth during the Viltrumite War, and Eve heartbreakingly reveals she had an abortion while he was gone, not wanting to raise a baby alone. They stay together through the trauma, and Eve later becomes pregnant with Tara. During Robot's shocking takeover, Eve has her leg ripped off and gives birth after emergency surgery on a Viltrumite warship. Mark holds Tara while doctors actively save Eve. Later, Mark is sent into an alternate past and returns to find a devastating 5 years have passed. Eve desperately tried to move on, but Mark rebuilds their broken family. They fight Thragg's children, survive the final war, leave Earth with Tara, and are impressively still together 500 years in the future. They are good parents, partners, and people. I want what they have so bad. Nolan and Debbie plus Andressa. Nolan, Debbie, and Andressa are the opposite of a simple, wholesome couple. This dynamic is highly complicated. Nolan and Debbie begin when Nolan comes to Earth as a Viltrumite infiltrator. He saves Debbie from gridlock, becomes Omni-Man, marries her, and has Mark, all while completely lying about his true, sinister mission. For years, they live as a normal family until Nolan murders the Guardians of the Globe, reveals the horrifying truth to Mark, and drops the bombshell that he views Debbie as a pet rather than a partner. Stating their marriage was a mistake, he nearly kills his son and leaves Earth. Nolan lands on Thraxa, becomes its ruler, peacefully marries Andressa, and has another son, Oliver. When Viltrumites attack Thraxa, Mark helps protect Andressa and Oliver while Nolan is captured. Because Thraxans age rapidly, Andressa becomes too old to raise Oliver and begs Mark to take him to Earth. Debbie, still heavily broken by Nolan's betrayal, raises Oliver anyway. After the war, Nolan and Debbie slowly reunite. Nolan becomes emperor, fiercely fights Thragg, dies from his terrible wounds, and leaves Mark to change the Viltrumite Empire for good. This makes this dynamic one of the most intriguing in the verse.